Hi, welcome to Fireside Snack. Let's grab a snack and sit down to chat. We're Abby and Gabby, two recovery coaches eager to share our lived and professional experience in the world of mental health and eating disorders. In our time together, we hope to grab a bite to eat and connect with ourselves and each other. Our hope with this podcast is to inspire you to take care of yourself by building a life you don't want to run away from. As a disclaimer, the information shared in this podcast is based on the personal experiences of Abby and Gabby and is intended for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are seeking support or have concerns about your mental health, please consult with a licensed professional. Enjoy your fireside snack. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Snack. This is Abby and I's podcast where we talk about all things recovery, eating disorders based on our lived and professional experience. We have weekly episodes where we sit down and chat with all of you while we have snack. So to get us started, Abby, what are you having for snack today?
I've got some oranges with pieces of the orange I'm flinging around that I'm excited about. I also have some water, making sure I stay hydrated. I'm excited for today. Gabby, what are you having for snack?
Okay, so this is going to be a little wild. I'm not having LaCroix anymore. I'm trying to pivot away from the LaCroix. So I have some fruit strips that I've already opened, and then I have this. And this might look like a glass of water to the naked eye, but I put some, it's not Mio, but it's like those drops that have flavoring in them, and this is watermelon. Ooh. So I'm about to taste it for the first time and see what happens. It definitely tastes like watermelon. I was not expecting it to be that powerful and flavorful because it's clear, but delicious, A+, and it was only $1. So
love that. We love savings.
Abby, now that we've gotten checked in for snack, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yes, I feel like this is such an important topic. We're talking about fun in recovery and a little bit about what fun did or didn't look like in our eating disorders. And I think that's a good place to start. Gabby, what did fun look like broadly in your eating disorder?
Fun? Never heard of her. Never heard of her in my eating disorder. I think for me, a lot of the time when I was in my eating disorder, a lot of things that were fun revolved around substance use or my behaviors with my eating disorder. So I was really consumed by that sector of my life. I didn't have any hobbies. A lot of my hobbies, like I said, revolved around not so great coping skills. And then I wasn't really inclined to try anything new because I had a very deep-seated feeling of perfectionism within me of I don't want to look stupid, or I don't want to do this wrong, or I don't want to fail. And so I would just spend hours upon hours planning my day around my behaviors or debating if I needed to compensate for X, Y, and Z. So my hobbies were doing ED math and reflecting on my critical inner voice. So I really didn't have a whole lot going on or a lot of things bringing me joy. What about you, Abby?
I just have to stop and from what you were talking about, just the time that the eating disorder takes. There is I'll jump in for what fun looked like or didn't look like for me in my eating disorder, but to just recognize how much time the eating disorder took away, that even just making space in your day for something theoretically fun is dang near impossible. So yeah, I needed to highlight that. I did not have much fun in my eating disorder. I had the notion, and I've mentioned this before, that suffering was supreme. And that I was some really stoic, this is what I need in life. And fun was viewed as excessive. I might have viewed it as a betrayal to what I needed. Major air quotes for that. Because everything that I did revolved around my eating disorder, or if there's a traumatic situation that I was in at that time, I was in freeze response. And fun is so much more free. I think it has a lot of similarities to freedom in my mind that I just did not feel like I could connect with it. And even, I have to say, when I first entered recovery, fun did not seem important. It was just like, oh, I've got, like, again, the serious suffering intensity. And it was really weird to think of it in any other way. Yeah, fun was another kind of F word when it came to recovery.
Fun was the other kind of F word. I just need that printed on a t-shirt. But I feel like it's so true. I think that a lot of the things that I deemed as fun were things that would turn off my brain, or things that would kind of put me in a dissociative state, or not as present or conscious as I could be. I would also say, if I did seek out like a movie or a TV show, I was seeking out stuff that was exploiting the behaviors that I was emulating. It was people who also had eating disorders, or people who were also dealing with substance use, and kind of glorifying these stories. And I was really seeking those out. I don't know if it was to validate my behavior or to almost give me a guide of what my life could be looking like. But I think the interesting thing about books and stories is that the eating disorder or the substance use condition typically like magically turns around. Sometimes in the books there's this magic love interest. You meet the love interest and then all of your problems are now magically gone. And so I think a lot of these things didn't really give me any way out of the eating disorder or substance use. It just kind of fed it until there was going to be somebody in my life who showed up to save me one day.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you sought out that kind of stuff as well, Abby.
I had a music playlist for every emotion that could lead me down dangerous paths. I had playlists that I did before engaging in certain things, because it was like I couldn't consume anything fun, not just food wise, right? Like, I'm thinking like media. It was all about like how to make myself feel horrible. And so there are still certain movies that I hear the name and I cringe, because I just think about how much in that state of my life I just needed them to bring me down. Because if I was going to watch something casual, it still needed to be like emotionally painful. It's very real.
I think a lot of what we're talking about is in our eating disorders, everything revolves around the eating disorder. There is nothing sacred. Books, TV shows, relationships aren't fun in the same way that they used to be. I would spend so much of my day exhausted because in the back of my head, I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z in relation to my eating disorder and my behaviors and how I went throughout the day. So yeah, I think it's rough in there. It's rough in the eating disorder. And a lot of people who I've worked with who are pursuing recovery, like you said, Abby, when you first start recovery, it is not fun. You're not having a good time. You're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and stop utilizing different behaviors, which very much puts you in survival mode. You're very much just trying to,
Make it through.
exist in this space. And it's very, very difficult. And I always tell people, though, if you're not having things to recover for, if you're not having a life that you enjoy, then why are we pursuing recovery? And so I think it's important to talk about incorporating fun into recovery, because it's going to be the wind that keeps the candle flamed for the passion of you to keep going. And so I'm curious, how did you switch that in your brain of fun has got to be a priority now?
So it actually ties into the disclaimer that we have at the start of every episode talking about building a life worth living. And when I started to look at that, I realized that I wasn't really stoic in any sort of way, but like that pursuit that I had didn't bring me value. Naturally, things that were more fun, more joyful added value to my life. So it was really through like my DBT pursuit of life worth living that I started entertaining, pun intended, fun again in my life. What about you?
I think for me, I realized that I didn't really have an identity outside of my eating disorder. I didn't have anything that I liked doing. I remember my friends and my previous relationships when I was younger, they were very codependent because I was so intrigued with what they were doing and what they liked. And whatever everybody else liked, those became my hobbies. And I remember when I was 22, I went into my first like adult therapy session, and my therapist was like, "What do you like doing?" And I was like, I don't know. I like to work hard. She was like, that's not one. She was basically asking me, what do you like to do that's for you and not for anybody else?
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of a single thing. I was like, is this it? Me in therapy? Is this me having fun? I remember she asked me, and I've talked about this on other episodes, what did you like doing when you were a kid?
Mm.
And I had a really hard time with that question because a lot of the things that I liked doing when I was a child were not things that I deemed productive. And so I think another thing that is important for us to talk about, Abby, is how we beat the productivity bug when we're trying to pursue fun in recovery.
I mean, you could have hit me with a hammer when you said that. The bringing up just the productivity. There's a book I can recommend that's called Laziness Does Not Exist. And it talks a lot about the idea that we think that if we're not productive all the time, if we're not so drained, if we're not so defeated, if we don't end the day thinking like, oh, I could not do anything else, that we haven't done anything worthwhile. And it's so flawed because what do we have to give when we can't give anything else? Like, it's just a cycle that's not, positive, beneficial. And especially entering recovery, I thought that everything that I did had to have some huge therapeutic value. I'm going to write this, memoir for each little reflective prompt I've been giving. I'm going to go and I'm going everything into recovery, but somehow still needing to be productive. And if I wasn't seeing things how I wanted to see them, then I wasn't being productive enough. I mean, it follows everywhere. It's definitely important to talk to because what's wrong with something being in and of itself okay, but hard to grab onto?
I absolutely agree with that, Abby. I think that so much of our world is built around like making commodities out of our creative endeavors. I think nowadays everybody has a side hustle. Everybody's hustling for something. Our culture really seems to be big on like if you have a hobby, then you should capitalize on it and turn it into a business, which I think is really, really detrimental. I also think something that you said really stood out to me of making therapy your hobby and making therapy your new identity. I know that I really have struggled with that in the past, is that I didn't realize this was what I was doing, but I remember I would go into therapy and I'd be like, okay, I'm ready to take care of myself. I'm going to figure myself out. I'm going to do all of my things. And then I became a perfectionist about my therapy experience. I dove in and I read every book and I wrote a paragraph for each journal prompt and I did all of the things. And I thought that was my new identity. But then that was just another thing that I put over myself and identified with, and I still didn't have the hobbies. I'm curious, Abby, if you had that experience of taking on therapy or mental health as your whole shtick.
Absolutely. I had a therapist tell me, you are not a professional client. I think it really goes into my treatment dependence that I was in for so long. She's like, this is not your job. This is not who you are. And it was everything about myself at that time. Again, the amount of workbooks that I own is nauseating because I was the professional client, and breaking out of that was terrifying because, again, there's a certain, I didn't have to take ownership in that way. And even when I found my identity and my things that I did through other people, it was still, I didn't have to figure out my own self because that was, what is inside my closet? I do not want to know. But it was so hard. But I very much remember a very firm, a loving but firm, you are not a professional client. You are not coming into work today. This is my job. You have other things that you can do.
I would have loved somebody to tell me that when I was in my first therapy experiences because that's how it felt. I wanted to be a rock star of a client. And I think
Yeah.
when you think about it though, and when I reflect on that past version of myself who was the professional client who was doing all of the things and going above and beyond in therapy, again, it was just another way for me to intellectualize my experience instead of actually having to feel and go through the process of getting back into my body and reflecting on my emotions. I don't have to do a feelings wheel if I'm always landing on perfect, right? I'm not
Yeah.
happy, sad, mad if
Yeah.
I'm perfect. And so I think that is another big trap that people fall into is you start thinking, wow, this therapy stuff is fun. I'm going to start embarking on that. Then that becomes the whole thing. And so I
Yeah.
think it's about finding different things that you can try out and enjoy and eventually find something that sticks and something that you like doing. Tell me a little bit about what that looked like for you, Abby. Are you gonna give me some truth? I feel like you're about to tell me something good.
No, I just, in my brain, this whole time, I'm thinking of if you've seen The Grinch or listened to the soundtrack, but like wouldn't touch you with like a 9.5 foot pole. And if that's the wrong distance, nobody judge me. But like that's how it was with fear. Like it was like I just need such a barrier against it. And so it came through like accidents. At first, I would find myself laughing. We've talked about this before of like the finding laughter again. And then I would feel guilty, like I've betrayed the seriousness of my life. Whoa. Um, that I could laugh, but it was through those moments to then go like, the world did not shatter. I did suddenly not turn into someone that I don't like. I just laughed. I just had fun. And I am a hobby cycler. And I think there's a lot to say about that, and that my discovery, my search for hobbies has been a little frantic at time, definitely guided by Pinterest. That's a dangerous place for me to be, but it felt foreign and wrong, and I had to give myself exposures, for like lack of a better word, and treatment helps with that. I had time to be creative, and I liked art therapy, but oh my gosh, I'm a tornado when it comes to a potential new hobby. What I think, fear kind of being something that you've touched on around fun, like how did you break through that, and what did it look like for you to...
I think the biggest thing that broke down fear for me was similar to what you said about making mistakes and realizing that the earth didn't shatter. I think I realized that I was never going to ever try anything if I was so afraid of making mistakes. I think something that was really impactful to me was realizing that I'm not that important. So when I'm out there, I'm thinking like one of the big hobbies that I was into for a really long time is that I taught myself how to ski. I mean, I didn't teach myself. That makes me sound like I'm some kind of savant at skiing. I took lessons and I went skiing, but I was in a class with one of my good friends, and had I been like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to see me fall down, everyone's going to see me just completely wipe out, I don't want to do this, I would have never pursued it. And now, looking back on it years later, it's been something where I've gone on so many ski trips and met so many
Yeah.
people and had such a good time skiing and bonded with my partner. But I would have never done that had I been afraid to make mistakes or been afraid to fail. But realizing that I wasn't that important, like when I was trying new things out, people typically weren't watching me. They were focused on whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
Nobody had me under a microscope like I had me under a microscope, because when I'm skiing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this position's off and my pole should be here and this should be this. Nobody else is really thinking that unless they're my instructor who's teaching me and trying to help me
Yeah.
perfect each of the moves. But I think something that was important was that, one, I'm going to never do anything new ever because I'm always going to mess up when I'm first trying something out. I'm not that important. Like, not everybody's focal attention is on me all of the time. And even if it is, even if somebody does see me wipe out, I think not putting pressure on myself to think I can never wipe out. I think when we start putting these nevers and evers and shoulds on ourselves, I think that keeps us stuck in a very small space. And so I liked what you said about being able to laugh it off. I truly do think things aren't that deep. Stuff's not that serious. If somebody's laughing at you, them laughing at you is taking away from them doing something. So like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's not about you, I think is a big thing.
What has stuck out to me in the way that you describe that is that fun is almost like an antidote to perfectionism, because perfectionism has so much of walls up, and to have fun, to laugh, there's like a required like disarming element. So if you can take a situation that you would have been highly perfectionistic in and invite some fun, it's inviting some freedom at the same time, and that flexibility, lots of F words, and just allowing, yeah, like perfectionism doesn't have as much of a place there.
I think that's an incredible observation because I think it's so true. I am even thinking about not just new hobbies and experiences, but even things that I was good at. So, like, for example, I played soccer for most of my life. And I remember in college, there were intramural teams. So these are teams that are not competitive. These are teams where everyone's supposed to be having fun, everyone's supposed to be having a good time.
Yeah.
Your girl Gabby went to a soccer intramural with her house that she was in, and I was so competitive. I was yelling, I was screaming at everybody. Not fun. That's not fun. And so I think to your point, I think sometimes when we're viewing life in this very serious, sterile way, I think it's in a very fight or flight way, a very black and white way, a very fun has no place here because if we have fun, then we're not safe.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening when I'm on my college intramural soccer team, right? We are safe. We're playing with our friends. It doesn't matter if we win. But when you have grown up with a life of perfectionism, or even for me, I grew up in a very critical environment where that kind of fueled my perfectionism. You're not allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think winning and losing and making mistakes does feel like life or death because it has been before.
Yeah.
And so I think you really have to reparent yourself and allow yourself to have fun and to remind yourself that you are safe and you are entitled to live a joyous and happy life.
We didn't even like talk about this prior, but I think it'd be interesting to know, did fun surprise you in any way? Like, did you have any maybe reframing of what fun means, surprising connections? Yeah, I'd just be curious to hear if, like, because it sounds like you had to rediscover fun really from the ground up. So anything like that?
I think I really had to change my definition of fun. I think whenever we think about fun in terms of society, at least as a young person when I was growing up, I thought of you're in high school and everybody throws a house party and it's all crazy and we're all jumping in a pool and everybody's having fun and doing this, that, and the other. That's what I thought fun was. I didn't think fun was I'm really enjoying this so much that I completely lost track of time because I'm so immersed in this experience. I think I really had to pivot away from fun being what could look good on my Instagram reel to how I'm actually spending my time day to day. And at the end of the day, I could say, wow, that was fun.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was about changing my definition of it. Abby, I'm curious what it looked like for you.
I rediscovered what celebration was when I tapped back into fun. I hated celebration. There was something about bringing attention to myself, which is what it's all about me in those moments of, not actually, but like in my mind at that time, that fun is like a microscope. It's like a celebration is a time where people are going to judge me more. They're going to look at me, have comparisons to my past or this time or that time. Celebration was something I tried to stay away from at all costs. But when I started wanting to do fun things, celebration was a part of that. And that was surprising for me that celebration had this element of connecting. For me, it's like fun with connection is that celebration piece. And now I do it all the time. I'm like obsessed with celebrating. Like I got my fingernail grew finally. That's been shorter than the rest of them. I need to celebrate. And it's been really interesting to want to support myself. And I see doing that through fun.
I love that. Celebrating the small moments is a version of fun. Circling back to finding fun, finding our hobbies when we began recovery, it sounds like we had to rediscover fun or redefine what that meant for ourselves. I'm curious now to talk about what it actually looks like in practice for you. I know you said you're a hobby cycler, but what are some things that you do nowadays to keep the fun in your life? What are your newfound hobbies?
I'm so excited to talk about this, y'all. Let me just give a overview. So, I really have found that I like creative things. I like making things. I made some really horrible cups with clay that I got. I've done wood burning where I like made and actually sold. I went to markets. I burn out on it though, right? I tried to make it into a business. I had an Etsy for a while because I like to make stickers. I have an example. I made like little mugs and stuff for people with like their names on them. T-shirts. It's fun. It's creative stuff. Now I would say I favor slow burning hobbies, so things that are going to take me more
Okay.
time. I love embroidery. It's still something with my hands. It's still something creative. I brought like a show and tell moment, a awkward looking fish man that I'm obsessed with that I did last year, but it's fun. I mean, that's a unique design. That's a fun design, but even doing it is something that's very it's rhythmic and I have a blast with it.
I am so excited about this. I'm excited for the show and tell portion of our
Yes.
hobbies because I think that's what I wanted to know about you. I wanted to know about what things you got up to. I feel like ask anybody who has been in treatment for eating disorders and ask them if they've had to try to or know how to crochet.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows how to crochet. It was something that I definitely tried in my recovery journey. I'm excited, Abby. After we go through our hobbies, I want to talk to you about what hobbies you tried and then threw away because
Ooh,
I think
yes.
that's equally as powerful. So for me, I also really like creative hobbies and endeavors, but I think for myself, I can sometimes get very perfectionist about that as well. I want it to be good. And so something that I found that I really enjoy doing that allows me to have a rhythmic motion with my hands is diamond art. And what I love about diamond art is that I'm never going to sell my diamond art. Nobody is like requesting a custom diamond art portrait. You know, it's
Yeah.
something that like I hang up around my house or I will give to my friends. But like, this is one of my favorite ones. Whoops. It is the Beatles. So we've got John, we've got Paul, we've got George, and we've got Ringo.
I'm obsessed
And
with this.
I have this hanging over my office. I have some bigger ones that I've done. But I like it because I just, sit down, listen to my little podcasts, and get into the flow of things.
Yeah.
I also am a really big reader. So this is my book that I'm reading right now. I am a huge library girly. So I go to the library a couple times a month. I love supporting my local community, but I also just love to read like silly books. A lot of the books that I used to read were mental health books or memoirs for people who have, changed their lives. And now I'm just reading silly little fiction books that I really enjoy and talk about
Yeah.
people and their life. So that's another hobby I've got. Add me on Goodreads or don't, your prerogative. And then I also have my Nintendo Switch because I'm a big gamer. I love playing video games. This was a hobby, though, for me that was very difficult for me to get back into. I had a lot of stigma around video games. They're kind of typecast by society as being lazy or mind numbing or, things that people just do to zone out, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, I think very differently about video games. I play a lot of adventure and story-based games, and for me, something that I did was kind of reframe how I thought about video games. So, as somebody who has experienced trauma and who did not have a lot of control during childhood, I think video games are a really cool opportunity for survivors of trauma to be able to control the narrative. I
Yeah.
am the hero. I am the main character of this story, and I get to dictate what happens to my character. I get to dictate how I'm going to change the story and how I'm going to move through. I get to slay the monsters when before I just had to abide by the monsters.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool opportunity for people um, to be able to, I don't know, put themselves back in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
I love video games.
I can't believe I also have a Switch and got that more recently. But I actually assigned some of my clients homework to play video games. And the idea I think of as well, not even just exploring different narratives, but for high intensity emotions. What is it like to transfer that in the game and to leave it in the game? So the idea is like intensity for intensity. So I'm looking for a high intense way to express my high intense emotions. Let me play a video game, and then when I leave the video game, I can leave that intensity there. So it's like a barter system. There's so many great quality helpful uses for video games, and even if there was absolutely none, still totally valid to
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. I think even for myself, I thought for a while, maybe I'll stream video games because then it'll feel like I'm being productive. And then I remember I started recording myself and I was like, I'm not having fun. I'm
Yeah.
having so much pressure put on to be fun or to be looking like I'm having fun. And I'll tell you a fun fact. I love to just like wander around video games. My partner gets like, he's always just like, how long did it take you to finish that game? I'm like 80 hours. He's like, it took me 25 because I'll like go around and fish. I'll go like pet
Yeah.
animals. I just like wander around. I really, really like I don't know if it's called cinematography, but I really like looking at the different worlds that people will build and the artwork
Yeah.
behind the video games as well. So, yeah, you don't have to be profiting from something to enjoy doing it. I'm wondering, Abby, what are some hobbies that you've abandoned part of the way through?
Yes. So everything. The clay, I thought I was gonna really go for. The wood burning, I enjoyed for a long time, but then when I started selling it, it's a different kind of pressure. It lost the funness. Same with my stickers I made. I enjoyed drawing and designing them, and then that it burned out. I did resin art, which I
Cool.
discovered how not cheap it was. I always convinced myself, like, this is saving me money. How, I don't know, but that's the thought process. And then it was just way too complicated. And really, the things that I've kept up, like the embroidery, are things that I can set down for a long time and come back to and pick right back up where I left off. So I've had to learn a lot about what hobbies work for me and which don't. What about you?
I can speak to a couple of small hobbies, and then I kind of want to talk about a bigger hobby and a bigger story. So, a couple of things that come to mind is punch needling. Basically, what will happen is I see something cool on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, that looks fun. And so I will go and then purchase the supplies for it. And then I'm like, oh, wow, they had to have had that on like a fast time lapse because this is taking me forever.
Yeah.
But punch needling, I tried it. I was like, oh, I'm going to love this. I hated it. Wanted to try crocheting and knitting, hated it, hated
Mhm.
every ounce of it. And then I'm thinking of a bigger thing that I wanted to try. So I remember from a really young age, I thought I would love roller derby. I remember my high school journalism teacher, she was a roller derby coach. And so I found out about it. And then I saw there was like a movie Whip It that came out when we were younger. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, this looks so cool. Like I want to be a little badass lady. And so I remember me and my friend went to tryouts. So I bought the whole get up. You had to have like a mouth guard, knee pads, elbow
Yeah.
pads, helmet. I had roller skates. I had to buy new wheels for them. And I went to two of the tryout sessions and I was like, nope, it
That's
is
it.
not happening for me. Yep. I went to the first one. I was so sore afterwards. I was like, that was painful. And then it's a very different environment than where I thrive. So I thrive in situations where everyone's like, good job, Gabby. You're doing great. And in
Yeah.
roller derby, they're like, get back up. rub
Yeah.
some dirt on it. Like,
Yeah.
you know better. And I'm like, this is not where I thrive.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. It was just a different thing that I didn't find as much joy in. And so I also just wanted to air out there, one, not only might you put some money into something that doesn't work out, you might also like put yourself fully out there like I did. I met the coaches, I met the teammates, I saw all of these people. Yeah. And my friend who I went with, she pursued it and she was like, I'm going to keep going. And I was like, I feel really bad, but this isn't for me. And that's okay. Yeah. And so I think also just being able to say, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to see if I like it is okay too. I think it's kind of like a job where I'm also interviewing this thing as well.
Yeah.
I also want to see if this is going to be a good fit too.
I think it ties in so well with what you brought up with hustle culture. You're not obligated to be good at something to enjoy it. Like, you can be horrible at painting and love it, and that is beyond okay. I think there's the sense that if we're doing something, we need to be able to have something to show for it that like validates our efforts. And it's like undercover, kind of similar feelings of perfectionism. And if you like something, regardless of how quote unquote well you do at it, you can like it. Like there doesn't have to be good to like. I think that can be caught up to because of the idea of like failure, even in fun. So it's a great point.
I think that's a wonderful observation. And I think that even speaks to this podcast. Like, I had no idea how to edit this stuff. I had no idea how to upload things onto social media. In our first couple of videos, they look a lot different than our videos do now. And I think it's also okay to know that, like, you might start out rough and that's okay. And I think I'm trying to think of this quote that I heard, but it was basically along the lines of like, good enough is the enemy of perfection. Like, just making sure something is good enough. I'm somebody who, when I upload our content or put things out on social media, I want it to be perfect and I want it to look great. And I've really had to adjust my standards of thinking, I'm not going to spend 8 hours a day on one tiny little fix when this is good enough. You know, this will be good.
That's such a great takeaway, I think, from everything that we talked about. If anything that I could add really is that if you experience fear alongside fun, it's not wrong. Like, we talked about how foreign it was, and that doesn't mean that fun is wrong or bad or not right. It can just be different. And that even sometimes when we do fun things, it can be scary or weird or different. And yeah, give yourself the chance.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about our hobbies today. I'm glad that Abby and I got to do some show and tell.
Yes.
This has been our podcast. We do weekly episodes. You can find them on YouTube and Spotify. You can also give us a follow on Instagram. And if you have questions, feedback, want to share your hobbies with us, you can email us at firesidesnack@gmail.com.
Until next week, y'all. Have a good one.
Bye! Fireside Snack is hosted by Abby Dinges and Gabby Buckner. Editing, music, and artwork by Gabby Buckner. Please email us at firesidesnack@gmail.com with your recovery questions and be on the lookout for weekly episodes. Thank you for joining us for Fireside Snack and for filling our cups up with gratitude. Enjoy your week.